Ahead of the Game podcast can explore potentially sensitive and triggering topics throughout each episode, including but not limited to mental health, physical health, trauma, addiction, and even death. If at any time you become triggered or impacted, please connect with your local resources or report to your local emergency room. Ahead of the Game is not intended to be a substitute for professional mental advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All opinions expressed by Ahead of the Game guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of the Ahead of the Game host, Sage Elite Healing, or its team of professionals. Always seek the advice of your licensed medical professional regarding questions or concerns with your mental and physical health. Please know, there is help and you're not alone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ahead of the Game with Sage Elite Healing. Today we have such a wonderful guest with us. I have been dying to have her on. Not only are you the co-creator of so many programs impacting so many people across the country, you've been spearheading programs like Merging Vets with Players, and so many other programs that I honestly would probably need another 25 minutes to go down the list of everything that you've done. But I want you to know,
in jail too, probation, at all.
Well, I just want you to know that I see you as a true pillar, a pioneer, and a legend of the community, and you've dedicated your life to servicing others. And it's such an honor to talk to you, Suzi. And thank you so much for joining us.
Well, it's about friggin' time that you guys step up. The old lady's getting tired. So let's get this right. I mean, seriously, now it's the interesting thing about how we look at age. And I do want to call out the elders and say, stop trying to be so young. We need wise elders. So the three of you on this call right now, Zach and Brandon and Mark, you are EITs. I call you EITs. That's called an elder in training. So get your shit together now so that you are a cool elder. Right? That's what important.
Got it.
Right. So, because we need everybody.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot at Sage Elite in the programming of, especially working with former players and active players, of understanding that stage of life that's the warrior component and trying to transition gracefully through that into that elder stage of, staying home, protecting the camp, teaching the younglings in the next round of warriors, that kind of stuff. So that little tip of the hat there touched my heart. Thank you, Suzi.
Suzi, I just want to say, give you my thanks for joining. They don't know the story how we met. I met you at a very crucial point in my life.
Yeah.
And you helped me through a lot. So I'm just so grateful to have you as a guest, and so grateful for everyone else to be able to meet you and get to hear your story, your journey.
I consider you a son. You're like
grandma.
Son. I'm your G-Ma now, right? I'm one of your G-Mas. Brandon, you were so open. You were so hurting and so open at the same time. So many times when we get hurt, we close down. Like, that makes sense, right? You want to protect yourself. So you close down. You don't want to know. You don't want to hear. You don't want to do differently. You want to stay in what is familiar, which is the hurt. And you and I talked about that it wasn't just the most recent hurt. It brought up, every hurt brings up every other past hurt. And that's why they deserve to be dealt with, so that you can understand, that's why I still feel that. And I have to tell you, you took a call from a crazy old lady. And I say that like, be crazy, do it well. And you took that call and you kept asking me questions, and you kept kind of poking around and seeing what was going on, and you'd give me a little bit, and then you'd ghost me for a while, and then we do it a little bit more, and you ghost me for a while. And he wasn't quite sure, which was smart. I just want to say it was smart, because what you were going to open was something that was so hurtful for you. You believed that it was that bad. And I just want to say it was an honor to watch you blossom, like literally. Look at his hair. I mean, just look at his hair. He blossoms on it, right? And then the thing about you is just like how you were in football. Like, once you got your hands on the ball, you were gone.
For sure.
Right? You were gone. Like, no one, like, you were gone. And what I found about you was, once you took the ball of healing, like, once you believed you deserved it, like, you literally deserved it, you were gone. Like, where the hell did he go? Like, I was talking to him now. He's where? He's doing what? You moved so fast. You healed so quickly. You jumped in with Mark. You started to do the work so fast. I almost couldn't keep up with you. I want you to know that.
Thank you for that, Suzi. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you so much. Suzi, at Sage Elite, we really focus on the 4 realms of healing, right? So mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And, I'm going to ask you some questions now, just pertaining to you, not your profession,
Okay,
just
Mark,
who you
hang
are
on
as a
one
person.
second.
So,
all right, hang on
yes,
one
ma'am.
quick second. Can I ask? Oh, good, I love this. Yes, ma'am. See what happens when the elder gets on, the GMA gets on. Everybody, they're all like, okay, yeah. Wait. I don't know who Zach Moore is, and we have Zach here.
Let's do it.
Introduce this guy.
Okay, so I give a brief introduction to myself. I'm Zach Moore. I'm a 5-year NFL veteran. I was born and raised in Southside Chicago. Attended Concordia St. Paul Division II school in Minnesota. Like I said, played 5 years, and I bounced around a couple of teams. And I retired in 2020, and through that was kind of when I went through my stages of depression, anxiety, PTSD, chronic pain syndrome, all of that stuff, permanent spine damage from playing football. And through fitness is how I kind of like found myself, or I'm still trying to find myself. And in that, I went to school, got certified as a personal trainer and nutritionist through the ISSA, International Sports Science Academy. And now I'm, being a vessel for, the one above, my creator, to help those that are going through similar struggles of mental and physical depression. And I'm helping them get in shape, preferably men, because I'm a man. I can resonate with men, and how that affects our, our mental, our testosterone levels, our hormones, all of that through physical fitness. Physical health is mental health, as I like to say. And through that, I have my own app, Upscale Trainer, where I, train clients from all over, helping them with, workouts, with nutrition, and being accountable. So, in a nutshell, that's who I am. But when we have more time, we could definitely get into all the other details.
That's awesome, Zach. It's nice to meet you. And I want to say one quick thing about finding yourself.
And he's my workout partner, Suzi.
Yeah, what? He's your workout.
And he's my workout partner.
Great. Oh,
Yeah,
that means you're doing some down dogs. That's what that means. That means you're doing some down dogs with this man, if that's true. And I'm so grateful. And Zach, one quick thing: when words matter, what we're going to talk about, and what I know that probably some of the stuff Mark's going to ask me and Brandon, is that we need a mental health evolution. Like we need it, we deserve it. So let's say deserve. So when you said finding yourself, I was thinking about how you were creating yourself. You get to create the person you deserve to be and the life you deserve to live. That's what you get to do every minute of every day. You deserve that.
Exactly.
I think that's an awesome topic right there, Suzi, because I think as my time as a therapist, I try to drive home the fact that we have to cultivate what we want. We have to kind of make that change. And I think, working in so many different aspects of mental health, I've seen so many people stuck just right there and not understanding that component and being able to move forward.
Yeah.
But Suzi, you're looking at Sage Elite's athletic department. This is where we combine mental health and physical health. These are the 2 men that have great experience in both realms, but they also understand how to connect with athletes. And at Sage Elite Healing, we want to combine physical health with mental health. If you want to meet with your therapist, well, you're meeting with a physical trainer too.
Yeah, I don't think we should ever separate them. Like the fact that we can try, or we do so often, is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not right, because the body doesn't work that way. The mind doesn't work that way. So why are we doing something that doesn't make any sense to the body? And the body's always screaming at us, for God's sakes, stop, like do this, do that, like keep us together. We now know that strength training is one of the best healers of traumatic brain injury. Like we know that now. We know that the brain wants to heal. It wants to learn new things. It wants to learn something it's never done before if a part of it has already been damaged. It's like, oh, wait, if you just keep speaking or walking, I can figure it out, another part of the brain says. Like we should never separate them.
Well, I think it was Confucius who said, like, if you don't exercise the physical part of your body, you're not actually understanding the true realm of reality, because you haven't tapped into that component of your body. So if we're trapped in these mental and emotional cycles and we're not using that physical realm at all, we can kind of see where it just kind of keeps perpetuating that hamster wheel.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
And yeah, just to add
go.
that, most people don't realize that our bodies are very, smart organisms. Like when we really tap into that, our bodies are capable of amazing things, as far as, strength levels, how we can look physically. And that's something that people don't really realize. But when you tap into that, like you said, when we tap into that and we start really honing our physical, health, we can definitely see, and then genetics, that plays a big part in how we ultimately feel, how we look. So once you tap into that and you really understand yourself, your body, you can pretty much, there's unlimited, potential that you can have.
Yeah. And
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting too how the body and moving is medicine. Like physically
Mm-hmm.
moving, like one of the worst things we're doing right now. I'm just looking at you three guys who are sitting. No offense, guys, but I'm standing.
To be fair, I am at a standing desk, and I was going to stand, but I'm like, I should probably sit down and
Right.
be. So
Yeah, I
Little
also
things like that. I know you guys know this. I mean, it's so nice to talk to you guys because
Yeah,
you
I
really.
also want to throw in, you said standing. I do have an Apple Watch. It does track how many hours I
Yep.
stand. I hit my standing goal today.
Yep. It's time to stand.
Yeah. And I just want to show you this. I just want you to see that.
Oh yeah,
And I am 72 years old. I didn't tell Zach that.
Oh wow, that's
Isn't
amazing.
that amazing? And it's all original body parts too, which is even funnier.
he's the coolest grandma ever, Zach.
But that's the investment that I made. So let's talk about that for just a second, because you guys are the new generation. You are the mental
Yes, ma'am.
and physical and spiritual well-being evolution. You guys are it. Like I'm here and I'm going to help and I'll support and do all that. And you're really going to change everything, because everything deserves to grow and heal and evolve. So, this idea that we're not going to separate that anymore is absolutely imperative. And I think the other part that we have to remember is that we can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. Like one of the worst things we do is when I see people go to the gym and I kind of see them wandering around by themselves and doing a little something and looking around. I'm going, wow, don't ever work out alone. You said it best, Brandon. You said workout partner. I work with combat veterans and retired professional athletes. We don't do anything alone. Like they barely go to the bathroom alone. I notice my grandson is going to the bathroom with his male friends. I don't know what they're doing, but I don't care because at least they're together. Like, they're doing stuff together. That's the other part of this, that what Sage is doing is reminding us that we deserve tribe. We deserve partnership. We deserve support. You deserve it. It's not this, well, on my schedule and this. No, work out together. Do those negatives together, those positives and negatives. Right? Do the front, the back, and the sides, as I always say.
Oh yeah,
Suzi, that was the big thing when I met you. I was just starting my healing journey. I was alone. I was trying to do it alone because I always did it alone.
That's right.
That's all I knew. I thought I could handle it on my own, but I didn't have a team, so I didn't have anyone I could talk to about what I was going through. I had a therapist, but it's different when you have a team.
It's very
That team aspect. I found that within you and MVP, and then I found that within Sage Elite. So I think that was one of the biggest parts I was missing, just coming from that team and then doing it on my own, not having a team, feeling like I'm by myself. And then I found another team. I think that just escalated my healing, and I just took off from there, like you said.
I
So
agree. And Sage Elite came as you started. The universe conspires to help you. Like most of us, because we've had childhood trauma and lots of other childhood trauma, we actually believe that the world is against us. Because your own family sometimes were. I mean, they sometimes did not help you. They sometimes were the perpetrators. So it's really hard to believe that there is a universe that once you start to do the work, I always joke and say the universe can't find you on your couch. There's no, they can't.
absolutely.
And so once you got off the couch, Brandon, and you started to step out, everything started to open up to you. but you had to make
Mm-hmm.
those first steps. You got to do that. And that's terrifying if you've never had that kind of support before. So
I'm a firm believer, and I tell everyone that I work with that, once you start doing the work and abundancy starts to come to you, things start to kind of line up. The universe kind of starts to kind of give you some breadcrumbs here to kind of lead you down to what you should be doing.
yeah,
And it's a beautiful thing to get to
we call
when
them
you're on your path.
right? We call
Yeah,
them coincidences, but they're actually messages. It's like, oh my
right,
gosh, I was just going to call you. Yeah, right,
right,
right. That's
right.
I love that one. My mother called it mental messages, but this idea that things actually start to align and show you. Now, you use the word abundance, Mark. One of the things that I grew up very poor, so
Mm-hmm.
we didn't even get to abundance. We just got to maybe enough. Like,
Yeah,
we just
yeah,
had enough that everybody got some. So one of the things
yeah,
I tell people is before you get to abundance, how about giving yourself enough attention,
yeah.
enough support, right? All of that. And there's another thing that you deserve to give yourself. There's two kinds of people in the world. And I know we like to talk about gender and race and all of that. Actually, what I've discovered for me is the two kinds of people in the world are people who want to know. They want to know. They might be stuck right now, but there is a sense in them that they want to know. Zach, you wanted to know. As sad as you were, as depressed and anxious, there's still that I want to know. And then there's people who just don't want to know. It's too terrifying. And some of us come from families that don't want to know. And I'm always hopeful that organizations like SAGE, one of the things that is so great about what you do is, first, all the practices, and I don't call them tools, I call them practices. You guys know how to go to football practice, right? You knew how to get to practice. So we have to practice every day that which we want to get better at. Every day, not once a week, not 3 times a week, like every day. And that idea that you will learn more and want to know more the more you do. So sometimes I don't feel like it, and I don't think I want to do that, and I want to go to the gym. I don't feel like it. That's a bunch of crap. I don't care what I think or feel. I care what I do. Because I know once I get to what I said I deserve to do, whether it's a session or anything, I then will think and feel better. So for me, even the new neuroplasticity tells us that's what we do is what changes our thoughts and feelings. And Mark and Brandon, you based your entire program on that. You don't have to think that you want to do it. You don't have to feel you want to do it. Just show up and do it with us and then tell us how you think and feel. And that's also the key. We're trying too hard to get to people through just their thoughts and feelings. I may be the only therapist that says, I don't give a shit about how you think and I don't give a shit about how you feel. I care what you do. Because I know
I'm also one of those therapists are like, when they're like, oh, I'm really sad. It's like, oh, you are too. Sometimes I feel sadness too.
Yeah.
Like, this is an emotion. It's experience.
It's experience. And actually thoughts and feelings are the same thing. We just don't know it. They feel and look, but they're not. They're the same thing and they come from the brain. I really appreciate you saying that, Mark, because one of the things I know about what SAGE is doing is when I talk about this mental health evolution, is that I know we're supposed to take, unquote, the Hippocratic Oath. I say that I think we take the hypocritical oath. So I know.
Explain that to me.
Right? It's the hypocritical oath. So I get to say to people, I get to sit in my office if I had one. I usually go to their house because I want to know how you're living in your house.
Yeah, I like to breach the environment. I like to breach the gate and be like, oh,
I don't see how they live.
That's right. You don't have to live in my office, right? You don't live in your house. So anyways.
You can rehearse on the way over. On the way over.
So. Right. So I can get in my high horse, and I do know a lot about horses, and say, Zach, you should quit smoking, quit drinking, and lose 100 pounds. And I can go home, Zach, and I can smoke a whole pack of cigarettes or a carton if I want. I can drink a whole bottle of wine, and I can eat a cheesecake myself. And you would never know that. I can tell you to stop yelling at your kids, and I can go home and scream at my kids. You would never know. I vowed when I started to do this, I said, okay, part of my issues and traumas from hypocritical parents, right, that they never did what they asked me to do. I said, I'm not doing that. If I'm not doing it, if I haven't done it, I'm not, and I have no right to ask you to do it. I just don't. I just feel very strongly about that. I had a doctor that we were both on high blood pressure medication because childhood trauma, we now know, creates the 50 and above aging, what we call aging diseases. And that's from actual childhood trauma because it builds up.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're on the exact same medication that he gave me, same amount. And every time I go in to get my blood pressure taken, it's lower. And my doctor's sitting across from me goes, why? Like, we're taking the same medication, and why does your blood pressure keep going down and mine doesn't? It was a very simple answer. You won't do the wellness practices that you deserve and that you tell everybody else to do.
That was the difference?
That was the difference. He wasn't.
I mean, I think that's a huge thing for all professionals that are practicing this realm, is that it's a part of your professional duty to take care of yourself, because it impacts treatment. It impacts how you guide your patients and, the people that you're serving. So there's actually, when you take that that Hippocratic oath, is that you're signing on to be like, I will oblige and do my duties as a professional to make sure I'm taking care of myself. And you'll actually see that it's not happening. I mean, I think a lot of the times as a therapist, I overwork, I overschedule, right? Overschedule, get those sessions in because you want to help everybody. And then next thing you know, it's 8:00 at night. And it's like, oh, well, I guess I should just prepare for the next day. Yeah. And then we get behind on that self-care. So, Zach and Brandon, you guys are also the ones that really helped me understand that I need to get my ass in the gym again. The athlete in me had died, a long time ago as I had transitioned. I had stopped playing the game 20 years ago. So I started doing, I was into the dad and, husband life. And so at the same time, I had lost that connection. And so at the same time, I'm tipping my hat to two of you. And also one of our other trainers, Mr. Derek Purdy. I'm going to tip my hat to him because he gets on my ass too.
Yeah. It was like all of a sudden, Mark, you started to get shorter and shorter when you just became a head on top of some feet. Like you're just living through your head, and that your whole body's starting to wither away because I don't need it as long as I have my brain. And
right. Like, I'll just keep going. I can keep going. I can help and I can guide and I can, like, it's almost, I can mental Aikido everything. You know what I mean? Like, you try to do that as a clinician, and I think that's one area is self-care. So I'm going to redirect us here. And this is where I think this is a good segue. So understanding these realms of healing that we operate on, Suzi, focusing on that mental realm, on the thought process, on ruminations, being able to stop ourselves and not define ourselves by what our brain tells us we are and what we're experiencing. How does the mental realm, or how do you operate within the mental realm? What are some of the things that you do that helps you not attach to your thought process?
Well, the first thing I had to do was to go back in and find out what happened to me. So I'm a huge believer, and there's a great book that just came out by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah about what happened to you, ? So when I really, and this was 20 years ago, I started to look in, and the whole ACEs and all of that, those adverse childhood experiences and how they affect us. I realized that most of the thoughts, if not all the thoughts I have about myself, and most of the feelings that I have about myself were either done to me or told to me. So I want you to think about that for a second, that if all the thoughts you have about yourself and the feelings aren't even yours, I would suggest that maybe you don't follow them. Just because it's kind of like wearing someone else's shoes and wondering why you're tripping all the time or why you can't run fast. Right? So and Marky just brought up a great thing, because I still have them. I mean, I was with my family, like physically with them for 18 years. That's a friggin' long period of time, right? 18 years. Think about what you've done in 18 years. So that means I have absorbed the thoughts and feelings from some pretty struggling people. And I got not only their thoughts and feelings, I got my ancestors as well. So that means that how I think about myself and feel about myself might have nothing to do with me. It might have nothing to do with how I am even in the world. But what I do is I take those thoughts and feelings and I start to create the world to support it. Think about that for a second. You are literally doing shit that will support these thoughts and feelings about yourself that may not be very nice or very healthy.
Most of the time subconsciously done too.
That's right. So first thing I do is when I have a thought and a feeling, usually the first thing I do is I start laughing because I don't take a lot of stock. I don't take a lot of stock in my thoughts and feelings.
That's a great place to be, Suzi.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh,
That's a great place to be. You laughing when you're having a thought.
Yeah,
man,
right.
I want to get there.
That's right, Brandon. Look at me thinking that again, right? And I might have a real big thought and a big feeling. I might. Like I had one, this is how few I have now. Like I had a big feeling about 2 weeks ago because someone did something so egregious and so dangerous that he literally could have killed somebody. And I was on the board of directors of this organization, and I could not get the other board members to sanction, stop, this whole thing. So I had to leave the board because I could not support what was going on in this organization. And I had some really big feelings. And of course, that went all the way back to when my dad and my mom and sister and family were doing such egregious things that we could have been killed. So think about that. Like all of a sudden, I made that connection really fast. Like, oh, crap. This is like when I was a little kid and I couldn't stop, like real serious. And I couldn't get adults. That were supposed to be my protector to step in and be the protector. So I had to leave. I moved 3,000 miles away. That's how far I thought I had to move to find that. And so, Mark, the first thing I do is I make those connections right away. So, I'm real clear about that. And the first thing I do is I don't react to them at all. I don't care how long I have to wait till I can figure out how I want to respond. So someone could be yelling at me.
Well, it sounds like you live proactively, like you're mentioning how you live proactively to reduce the reactivity that you're that's being thrown at you.
But it takes practice because I want to react. I'm quick. I'm an overachiever.
Right.
I'm like all of this. And I move fast. I talk fast. I was an athlete as well. I played football. I was on a powder puff team. I played fullback.
I've seen your history.
Yeah, there's a picture in my
you're a weightlifter.
Yeah, right. So you're right. I wasn't always that way. I had to practice stopping, holding still, breathing. That's the most. Yeah, stop. Like just stop first. And I
push that pause button.
Push it and don't just wait. Right now, that's where the athletes and the combat veterans really helped me. Remember the movies where they're in the ambush and they're waiting for the enemy to come, and there's always something that goes, wait, don't shoot yet, don't you? Because you'll get. So I thought, oh my God, I get to learn to do that. I also get to look at the situational awareness and to take in everything that's happening around me, not just my thoughts and feelings. So the combat veterans taught me SA, situational awareness. I had some of that because of my abusive dad when his car would drive up. But it also stands for self-awareness. And that's, Mark, what we were just talking about, that you need both. Because SA, situational awareness, is about the threat outside of you. SA, self-awareness, is you might be the threat you're looking for. If you don't know,
you might be the culprit.
Right. So then I got to keep my mouth shut. I got to hold my body. One of the things I do is I ground myself and I start breathing deep. I just flood my body with oxygen because I want to know whatever it is I have to do or say is going to be based on oxygen, not adrenaline. Now, of course,
I do the same thing. I inhale oxygen as much as I can, focus on that breath.
And oxygen.
Ooh, doggy.
Yeah. Here we go. I'm just put it right in there. Put it anywhere.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it was so traumatic that I used to hold my breath. Now, think about how many times.
I do the same thing, Suzi. I was telling Mark, I find myself holding my breath throughout the day, just randomly breathe.
They breathe because
I hold my breath during yoga too.
Yes, because you're getting shots.
All the body just holding it in. Yeah,
that's right. And the body will think somebody's doing this, and it's going to give you a shot of adrenaline. So when you deep breathe, it's the only drug that stops the flow of adrenaline. Everything else masks it. It will either mask it or go a part of the brain to shut down sort of how you're feeling, but doesn't really stop the flow of adrenaline, right? So that's really important. So those are the things that I do mentally. And those are practices regardless of the situation. I think what we do is we say, well, when this happens, then say this, or when this happens, do that. No, there's got to be
right. Yeah.
no. These practices fit
Well,
every situation.
Well, Brandon and Zach, I'm sorry. I'm going to ask another question because I'm having a conversation with Suzi Landolphi.
No,
You just have to deal with it, okay? And as a clinician, I have some questions.
Oh, he just pulled the C card, the clinician card.
Well, just I mean, well, just because you've done so much, and as a clinician, look up to you, and I want to circle back to some of the stuff that you were talking about in regards to the adverse childhood experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I know something within myself that was created through my own childhood trauma with my own family is where I've developed my own role, right? Where I've kind of developed this own role, and that role kind of has really helped me out in some areas, but it's really fucked me over in a lot of other areas. Right. So I was the Joker, right? So things would start happening. I would skip in Danny Kane, and everybody would laugh, and I'd be like, okay, we're cool. And I'd moonwalk out. Like, all right, I did my job. Like, and that has led me to do a lot of other things throughout my life as an adult. Speaking to your trauma, what kind of role did you fulfill in your family?
Well, I was definitely that. I was definitely the joy, fun maker, the kind of like everything's fine, right? And then I became also the overachiever. So I would make sure everything was clean. I'm helping to pay the rent at 10 years old. I'm going to school. I'm making sure that I'm at school. I realized that we couldn't have one more person just fucking up because the whole thing would fall apart. One more person drank and didn't get up in the morning. The whole thing was going to fall to shit. So somebody had to be that overachiever. Now that seems like a great thing, but it's like what you said, Mark. When do I get to stop?
Yeah.
So we're on that sort of automatic pilot if we're not careful. So remember, it's not who you are. It's what you were trained to be. Childhood is training. So what's so good about that, and you guys know about training too, you can retrain. Think about that. You can retrain. And if there's nothing wrong with you, it's what happened to you. You get to now do something different to create that, and you get to keep that superpower. So let's talk about our funny superpowers, because both of us are pretty funny. So that superpower, like I've done lots of public speaking. I did some stand-up for a while. I used my humor to do a safer sex presentation in colleges during the AIDS crisis. And thousands of college students would come because they thought I was a stand-up comedian. And I brought an audience participation and all that stuff. And of course, I wasn't making fun of people with AIDS or the whole AIDS crisis. I was making fun of how we can't even talk about sex and how we keep our eyes closed and we won't put a condom on and all that stuff. So I had all that, and I could use audience participation. So let's talk about the effects of trauma that are hurtful, that will continue to give us false messages about ourselves. And we are at risk of doing, I'm going to say this slowly, we're at risk of doing to ourselves and others what was done to us. We will swear up and down that you'll never be like your parents or anybody else, and it will happen. You are at risk. It may not happen, and you're at high risk. So that's one thing that we have to remember. So I would say that we have to look at the hurtful aspects that can kill you of childhood trauma and additional trauma. And we have to look at the post-traumatic wisdom. Now, if you look up post-traumatic wisdom, that was Dr. Bruce Perry calls it that. It was actually discovered by Rich Tedeschi, a wonderful psychologist and from UNC Charlotte, and Lawrence Calhoun, and they called it post-traumatic growth. So Zach and Brandon and Mark, you all have superpowers from your trauma too. That's the whole story, right? So my abusive dad gave me two of my greatest superpowers. That's just a fact. That's a fact. So I get to now look at with a much wider lens. I said, well, yeah, he made me feel like a piece of shit and I wish I was never born. And he was the first person to dance with me. I'm like a a really, really good dancer. Like I'm one of those kids at the piano, you know what I mean? And you go, how can that 3-year-old play that? And you'd be looking at me going, how does that 5-year-old dance like that? I'm like that. So that's a superpower that never would have been discovered if my abusive dad didn't dance with me. And right. And he was also an entrepreneur. He had no business opening a successful restaurant, being the son of an Italian immigrant and doing this whole thing. And I opened the first condom store in the United States during the AIDS crisis. I had no business doing that. You know, I was $70,000 in debt the day we opened, 400 square feet. And I just saw my whole life flash before me, like my Jeep, my house. And I never looked back. We made, you know, money, and we educated people. You could bring your kids in to do that, right? So that to me is why you have to ask yourself, what are the post-traumatic wisdom, growth, strength, whatever you want to call it, that you also got from that trauma? That's important, and that's the whole story.
Nice. That was beautiful. I gotta commend you. That was
How long do we get to go for this? What do we usually do?
Whatever time. I'm at your mercy. Your mercy. So
okay. Well, I want to say
okay.
You go.
Absolutely. No, I want you to ask. You can prompt anything you want.
Sue, I want to go back to the idea that you guys are part of the mental health evolution. That we need disruptors, because you do know that modern mental health started by drilling holes in people's heads to let the demons out. So it's probably a good thing that we take a look every year, but we don't look every year.
There's no blood that came out of the nose. No blood came out of the nose, so it must work. It must work.
And this is the truth. So what happens is Mark and I are supposed to look in a book, the DSM, and we're supposed to look at your symptoms, and then we're supposed to give you a diagnosis. And so when I talk about disrupting, I really mean disrupting. And that book only gets changed. I think it's every 6 or 7 years. A group of clinicians go and look at it and decide if it's still okay. 6 or 7 years, a lot of stuff can change. And with all neuroscience and childhood trauma and everything, up until 1973, in the DSM, if you were gay, you had a mental health disorder. I want you to think about that. That's 1973, my daughter was born in 1973, right? So we used to say kids were bipolar. We used to talk about Asperger's. We took that, like all the time we're adjusting. And here's the problem with a diagnosis. Problem with a diagnosis is the same issue with a broken leg. So Brandon, have you ever broken a bone?
I have plenty.
Okay. And Zach, have you broken a bone?
Absolutely.
Okay. And Mark, have you broken a bone?
No, ma'am.
Oh!
Knocking on wood, baby.
Fingers and toes. That's never broken a leg.
Well, I did chop off my finger cutting wood with an axe, but that's not technically the same thing.
That's a little bit different. And if we had somebody else with a finger chopped off and it was a different finger, we would give you the same diagnosis. Oh, he has a chopped off finger. But the stories are completely different. When it happened in your life, completely different. So Brandon, your broken leg and Zach broken leg. You can say, well, I have a broken leg. And Zach said, yeah, I had a broken leg too. Well, what's nice about that is you say, I had. But your breaks are completely different. And the effects of those breaks are completely different. And the trouble with a mental health diagnosis is, here's what I get. I don't get to say I had bipolar disorder. I say I have it. Well, when don't I have it? How quick we are to diagnosis and how long it takes to take it away. Right. Right. And
there's also even like the misunderstanding on understanding the amount of observation time that you need on an individual just to make that diagnosis. And there's a lot of that not going on either.
That's right.
So there's a lot of people carrying around that defining tag to them that don't have the appropriate observation time.
That's exactly right. And everything in mental health is like salsa. Remember that. I figured that out.
Hungry.
Yeah, salsa.
Making me hungry.
We didn't have Mexican restaurants when I was growing up in New England, right? I was like 34 the first time I ever had salsa. I'm like, oh, what is this? I think it was 42 when I had sushi. Anyway, so everything is mild, moderate, or severe, just like salsa. So you can't say you have something without talking about the severity. Now, why would you want to know that? Let's say I have.
That's the part you don't want to know. You don't want to hear you have a severe case of anything.
Well, if you do, though, we get to work to not get rid of it, Brandon. We get to bring it to the mild or the moderate to mild. So I want to prove a point for you. So say you have OCD. I have OCD. Now, what is OCD? It means that there was a child running around in a house with a bunch of people who were drunk, and I cleaned everything up. I was so anxious about what was going to happen next, whether we had to move yet again, all of that. My mom kept selling furniture to buy more alcohols. Every time I came home, I remember coming home and putting my lunchbox on that nice little table next to the door, and it fell to the floor because the table was sold. It wasn't there anymore. So my OCD was severe growing up and also into my early 20s, because that anxiety drove me about what was going to happen next. And I had to keep things in order so that my life didn't fall apart as a child. What I've done, Brandon, is I've worked on it and started, first of all, I loved it. And then I started to move it into the moderate to mild category. Now, why is that important? Because I get invited to parties all the time because I clean up. I'm the only one that stays. I'm the only one that stays. I go to my girlfriend's house and she goes, "Oh my God, you left my bedroom better than I gave it to you." And I go, "I hope you're not offended." She goes, "I'm not offended. I love it." Right? So I don't want to give up all my symptoms. I do not. I want to be a little hypervigilant or a little bit concerned about who's doing what. I want to be a little bit like, who's doing what? Like, you know, that kind of smothering mother, grandmother, like, what's going on? I want to do that a little bit. I just don't want to do it into the severe category. It also allows me to not be shamed. It allows me not to be shamed that I have severe this because of what happened. It's because of what happened. So now that it's not happening, I get to bring it down. Let's talk about, we did this with the veterans. They have PTSD symptoms. Let's just talk about those for a minute. So you're hypervigilant. You're always looking for the threat. You have no tolerance for mistakes because mistakes.
Compensation.
Right, compensation. So all of that. So you go down those lists. Those are superpowers when you're in a firefight. They're superpowers. They're not symptoms. Then you go home and all of a sudden they're a symptom because they don't match the environment. That's the other thing we don't do. So we don't get to say you just have symptoms without taking a look at how they were formed and whether or not they help you at this moment in your environment. I am not going to tell a child that's kind of hypervigilant that may live in a household with people who are very dangerous to shut that down. I'm not. I'm going to help that child be able to know, oh, when I'm not at home, I can take a deep breath and I don't have to be that hypervigilant at home. When I'm at my grandma's house, when I'm at school, maybe not at school anymore because of what's happening. But you know what I'm saying? So we don't give enough information. And Mark, you said it right. Like how long do you get to know my story before you give me a diagnosis, not just my symptoms. You need to know where.
Well, I mean, as a clinician, I stand firm that like, I can't really help you climb the mountain if I don't develop a relationship with you. If we don't have that human connection, and you can also understand, I use swear words and I'm going to hold a mirror up and sometimes that's going to hurt you. And, you know, that's going to hold you accountable. You know, I need to have that relationship with you to help you. If it's just, you'll never come into my office and me searching through the DSM-5.
That's right. That's right.
Right. You know what I mean? I want to be able to connect on that human to human connection. And, you know, also being in Colorado, sprinkling nature in on that is always a double bonus there.
Let's talk about that. Like, that's why I have
Boy.
an office. Like, that's why I work with horses and people too. And like, oh,
I was going to ask Susie, how did you get started with the horses? I know you're big in
Yeah.
horses and horse therapy.
so I only got
I know
involved
you
with
started your
horses
healing journey.
like 20 years ago, Brandon. So, so I'm 72. So that means I was like 52 when I first really met my first horse, like nose to nose. And it was a wild horse at that. So I learned how to gentle wild Mustangs, thinking at 52 I was going to run off and be a cowgirl. I said to my daughter, okay, I'm 52 now. I think I'll just run off and be a cowgirl. So I need to learn more about horses. And I said, come live in our barn for 3 days and we'll teach you how to gentle wild Mustangs. And I think that that's a good idea for whatever reason. And when that horse trusted me enough, and this is to your point, Mark, about relationship, when I was breathing, when my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions were the same, not different. I wasn't trying to bullshit the horse about how, I'm not afraid. I was like, oh my gosh, like, don't eat me. Like, in my words, my actions, my feelings, or I just want to have you smell my hand and I'll get the hell out of here. That's all I'll do. And when that horse realized that I meant it, that I finally put my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions together, and I was trustworthy, that horse smelled my hand and I walked away.
Right.
I did what I said I would do. And guess what? I got gentled. Well, the horse did too, but I got gentled. And I learned more about how to be gentle. So what they do, Brandon, is that they have 30 feet of energy coming off their heart. You guys are doing energy work. Like whether you're doing, if people say I do energy work, I go, everybody's doing energy work all day long because we're all energy.
Right. Yeah. It's all balancing that energy. It's all back and forth.
Right. And you're either being honest about your energy or dishonest. That's the only two choices you get. So I have 7, and you guys have 7 to 10 feet of energy coming off your heart all the time until you die. And horses have 30 feet of energy. 30 feet of energy coming up. You can stand next to a horse. I take high blood pressure medication. I can stand next to a horse and my blood pressure will go down just hanging out with them. That's how powerful it is. So what I love about them is they're not codependent. They don't care if like I like them or I don't like them. They don't need my validation to know that they're a great horse. They would kind of rather most of the time be with horses than with us, which is fine. That means that they're still connected to their tribe. And I don't have, unlike dogs, and I love dogs, I got 3 downstairs, and I know you've got a great one, Brandon. Though we took those dogs out of their tribe, so they have to be with us. I mean, they know enough that, oh shit, I got to be with this human because I don't know where the can opener is. Right? But horses are like, I know where the hay is. If you just let me out of here, like I can go walk and figure shit out. Like I know how to do that. So I love that they give us a true response, an authentic response to how we are internally. They don't mirror us.
It's also
you found healing in that. Like you found healing in being around the horses, and like when you was going through your struggles, you found that's where you found the horses and all those things.
That's exactly what happened to me when that horse first touched me, and I burst into tears, and I realized that all my trauma was coming and lining up. And I was being honest with myself. That's when I ran in to be a therapist. I said, okay, this is the only thing I want to do for the rest of my life is put people and horses together so the horses can tell us who we truly are. Because
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering how you always stood in front of the wild horses. I'm like, I couldn't see myself going out there and standing in front of a horse. Like you said, all those different things would come up. Like it would just be almost too much to even put that mirror in front of you. Sometimes I know myself, I don't always like to put that mirror in front of myself.
It's true. And each horse will put up a different response to you. So not every horse will mirror you. What they will do is respond to you honestly. And that's what most people won't do with you. Is most of us lie to each other and we don't respond in an honest way. So you're not getting honest feedback on a daily basis about who you really are. And if you come in there with a lot of fear and a lot of bravado and everything, the horse is going to go, dude, come back to me when you get your shit together. Right? And some of them will bump up against you and go, don't think you're the big horse here. I'm the big horse. But the most important thing, Brandon, is I was sexually molested as a kid. So I've got this body memory of somebody being tall and big and over me, right? That I couldn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
So think of how healing it is when I could take a 19-hand horse, which I have, and go, whoa, stop. And I could stop that horse at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's powerful.
I would say that's so powerful.
Experiential.
Mm-hmm.
You're practicing that boundary, not just talking about it.
Well, and speaking to that, 30 feet of energy coming off of its heart, I've heard through my training, and, connecting with the animal kingdom through holistic and nature-based practices, is that horse's heart is so powerful that it's actually mimicking nature's drum.
Yes.
And it's drumming so hard and it's so loud that it's just like sound healing, that when you stand next to it, your heart can be doing this. It's naturally going to go, and it's going to start beating alongside that horse, because the horse has that power to suck your circadian rhythm and connect to it.
So there's a great website, look up Heart Math, and see that organization and that program. They're the ones that do all the research on this. It's great. And just to let you know, the drum and the heart. So wild horses, as you know, have been around for thousands of years. They tried to say the Spanish brought them over, which they did bring some over, but they've been here since the dinosaurs and all that. So anyway, we have a bunch of wild horses. We have 400, and I had 100 in a very, very large turnout, 20-acre pasture. 20-acre pasture. Anyway, I bring a bunch of native kids. Worked for a wonderful organization in Los Angeles called United American Indian Involvement, and we took a ceremonial drum. We brought it into the pasture with the horses, and the boys started to drum. And once they started to drum, 100 horses started running up and down this very large thing. And the boys were like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And they were singing and drumming, and the horses stopped after running 3 or 4 times. And they started to walk forward, and they completely made a semicircle around the boys. I'm sure they would have completely circled them if we weren't standing there with a camera. So they went on it, and they stopped, and they faced up to those boys while they were drumming. I've never seen this ever happen. And what we figured out was, not only is it that you're right about the heartbeat and the drum and their heartbeat and the energy, Mark, what we also believe is they remembered that sound through their ancestors. Right? They were born, because we know that's epigenetics, that things can be passed down, that from your ancestors. And we realized that's probably what's happening.
That's super awesome. And I absolutely believe that. I have 2 rescue dogs that are from Pine Ridge Indian Reservation.
Been there many times.
And I'm telling you, when I when I drum, or I'm doing a sound healing or meditation, they're very in tune with that. They're very open to that. So yeah, I was always taught through my training that the horse is the heartbeat of Mother Earth. I mean, when the horse starts running too, it's the, it's the drum beat, and we got to pay attention to it.
I have an idea. I don't know if you want to do this, since I come to Denver all the time. I know of a place that has horses near Denver. I don't know exactly where you guys are. I'll have to look up again and see. But we literally could plan, when I come out, to do a day with the horses, if you want, with you guys, with any of your. So I have a way of doing the work. I call it horse-inspired growth and healing. And you'll love this, Zach, since you've been to treatment. And I was a clinical director of a treatment center here in Malibu, and they just asked me back to do some consulting. So horse-inspired growth and healing, if you take the first letter of each word, it says hi. Spells high. So we're always like, come to high on horses, right? So I'm actually going to Sacramento the first week of December, and I'm doing a whole demonstration of the high, model. And
that's awesome.
Like that. Yeah. So I'd happy do that for you guys, just so that you can experience it.
I would love it, and I'm all for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we, speaking emotionally, right? Okay. We talk mentally, how to control our thoughts. Now, one of the biggest things that I know, even myself as a human and as a clinician, that I help other humans try to figure out, is how to feel like shit more efficiently, right? That's what I tell people that I do. You come to me so I can help you figure out how to feel like shit more efficiently, right? So
Absolutely.
and I also have to teach myself how to do that. So emotionally, we really latch on. If we believe the thought, then we know we believe the emotion, and we define ourselves by these emotions. Brandon, I'm going to use your story through the NFL, where you really started to believe that play was your defining moment as a player and as an athlete, and how it really impacted you. So I guess, Suzi, emotionally, if we take the bait of the thought and we checked its ID and it got past the bouncer and it comes into the club and starts really fucking shit up, what are some ways, other than some of the stuff that you've already talked about, that you really utilize to understand your emotional state and that self-awareness?
If you're in the club, don't drink, because that won't help your emotions at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dance on the bar, but keep your clothes on. All right. So I love this because, like I said, I understand thoughts and feelings. We now know, if you read the book, How Emotions Are Made, you'll realize that they really are the same things. They sort of present themselves as if they're very different, but they're completely intertwined. You really can't have an emotion without thoughts, and thoughts without emotions, and the one construct the other, but they're really connected. So they're very much the same. So much like I said about the thoughts, I do a similar thing with the emotions. Now, one of the things I want to say, so for Zach, when you were using, it was a solution. It wasn't a problem. You started to use as a solution. Is that true?
I could very.
Yeah, it was going to help you. And it did for a while, right? All right. So emotions are like that. Emotions are part of what we believe is part of a solution to get what we want, to protect ourselves, mostly to deal with protection. That's what it's going to do. So if I'm alone and I feel lonely, it's a way for me to go get connection. So I try not to say emotions are bad. I like your word, Mark, is that, are they effective, is what I'm doing. I want to say something else about the trouble with emotions is we feel, more than thoughts, we feel justified in expressing our emotions, even when they hurt ourselves and others, even when they're dead. We literally, that's the worst part of emotions, is believing that you are justified in screaming, yelling, calling.
It's the emotional entitlement. And it's really, I've seen a lot of that too, really getting stronger and stronger, is emotional entitlement. As you did this, I did that. And
Yep. So, and then you're picking up all the collateral damage from that. Like there isn't a time that if you justify your reactive emotions, I swear you're always going to have some kind of collateral damage somewhere, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. So what I've been doing about my emotions is I always joke and say, do you want to be the Hulk, or do you want to be Bruce Lee? So you can get those two choices. All right. So the Hulk doesn't honor emotions, completely afraid of them. He's this nerdy professor that wants to deny and doesn't like confrontation and won't tell his truth and won't work on a process to deal with how he feels. And then all of a sudden he explodes or implodes, and he causes all kinds of collateral damage. Think he's going to be the protector now, but he doesn't. He causes way more damage most of the time than that. Bruce Lee, on the other hand, didn't get upset before the fight, during the fight, or after the fight. I just want to think about that for all of us that have been in a fight. I'm not talking physical fight. I'm just talking about screaming, yelling match. Right? Yeah. He didn't get upset during any of that process, meaning he didn't allow the emotion to decide what he was going to do and how he was going to do it. He felt them. He has them, but he didn't. So I love my emotions. I just don't believe them, trust them all the time. And they are now defined and managed by my principles. So that's one thing we haven't talked about yet. So my thoughts and my feelings.
How you manage those.
Right? See?
Core values and principles.
That's it. Its principles are everything to me. So when I got a thought or a feeling, and I I always say, like anger has 5 stages for me. It has irritation, frustration, anger, rage, and murder. Right. I mean, seriously, that's how bad it can get, right?
Hulk smash.
Yeah,
Hulk smash.
right. So I make sure that my principles guide me in all areas of my life and all aspects of my life. So when I decide to run my life, create the person I deserve to be and the life I deserve to be based on my principles, oh man, there's very few times that I mess up, that I really mess up, that I got to go, oh, now I got to go make a huge amends and I've lost that relationship and everything like that. That hasn't happened in years once you make a commitment to those principles. There.
What are some of your principles?
So the first one for me was honesty. Now, why honesty? Because I was so afraid of my father, and he was so erratic that I had a 50-50 chance of lying or telling the truth and deciding which one was not going to get me hit. Right?
Right.
So I became such a good liar.
Which was a higher percentage shot here?
Oh, right. But if I really figured out what I needed to tell him to calm him down, I was such a good liar. I would have been a triple agent. Like, that's how good I was. Right? Forget the double. I went right to triple agent. So what happened as I got older, that fear when I made a mistake, or if I was going to lose something, or someone was going to get mad at me, what was my first reaction? Fear made me lie. Yeah, I was going to lie. So, boy, that was a big one. I had to do that. I had to make sure. The second one was really interesting. A principle is I don't get to call names. So if you want to call that kindness, I don't. I'm from Massachusetts, guys. We call ourselves massholes. That's what we call ourselves in Massachusetts. That's what we are. We're proud of that. I don't know if you just saw the tape when Ted Cruz was
Susie Zach played in New England, so he can relate with that.
Yeah.
He's on the Patriots.
Yeah, that's all. Well,
that made him laugh.
Yeah, Patriots when they're not cheating. Sorry, but I just call it like it is, even when it's my home team. So yeah, this idea that I don't get to be abusive. So that's kindness and that's respect. So those 3 right there, just think of those 3, right? And the last thing I realized was I was so upset, so how can I put this? I was so convinced that I was a piece of shit and that I was so unworthy of being loved that I would do almost anything to be loved by somebody. Now that's a scary way to be.
Yeah.
That's really scary. So then I started to take a look at the word love. So let me ask you a question. Did you guys learn in English class that in order to have a sentence, a complete sentence, you have to have a subject, an object, and a verb? Did you remember that? I didn't have a verb, so now it's just a participle hanging or whatever it is, or it's just a phrase. It's not really okay. So I thought about that and I said, okay, let me take this sentence. I is the subject. You is the object. Love is a verb. It's not an emotion. Holy shit. Like, how did I miss that? Goddamn Hallmark cards. That's what happened to me. Lifetime movies. So if it's a verb, it means that it has behavior. It means kind. It means honest. It means respectful. That's what love is. It means caring. So if I'm being loved, that's what someone's doing to me. If I'm loving, that's what I'm doing to somebody else. So what's the emotion that goes with being loved and loving? For me,
contentment, acceptance.
Acceptance. How about joy? Do your little kids, Mark, do you ever notice that when your little baby started to belly laugh to the point where it farted, you couldn't stop laughing yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the joy, right? I don't know, Zach, if you have kids or not, but that joy that comes out of a baby when things are pleasant for them. See, babies only know pleasant and unpleasant. That's all they know, because we're the ones that have to teach them the most. They don't even know fear. They don't know sadness. They know whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. Okay, then we teach them that. So what if joy is one of the primary emotions that we deserve to have. And that comes from how we behave towards one another. Now, it can also come from yourself. Zach, when you were a little boy, what was one of the things you did that brought you joy? That you could do it all day. You were in complete joy when you did it. Do you remember something?
I would say play video games. That
Video
was something
games.
I
I
loved.
love it. Oh God, they saved my grandson's life when he was in the hospital with leukemia twice. That's because it comes from a family of overachievers. That's what I told him. He started to laugh. Brandon, what did you do? What did you do to bring you joy when you were a little boy, especially when the shit was hitting the fan in your family?
Play sports.
Yeah, sports. Joy. Mark, how about for you? What brings you joy?
This is such a question that touches my heart. Thank you so much for asking it. Because I mean, coming from a trauma-based childhood, I played with my GI Joes.
Yes.
I literally had a travel case that no matter who relative's house that I went to, I had my GI Joes, and no matter what kind of crazy shit was going on, no matter what was happening, happy, sad, no matter what, I learned how to disconnect from it. And I learned how to, and I was one of those GI Joe players. It wasn't just about the explosions and breaking stuff. It was about dialogue. What was the story about? What were we? We were on a mission here, and I really dove into that, and I got to create my own worlds. And I still tell that to people. I'm getting goose pimples talking about it because, I have an 11-year-old daughter now, and we play. I still, at the age of 40, I still give hours of playtime. It's almost a form of therapy for me, to where I get to experience that with my child, and she's doing it and she's watching me do it. I mean, I'm telling you, it's a very special bond that I have with my daughter in regards to play.
That's how we learn. Kids learn through play. Why do we stop? You played football. You played football.
Yeah.
The word play. You didn't work football.
Right.
So mine was.
But my GI Joes were my saving grace. I can hang my hat on that.
They were your family, your safe family. They were your team.
I still have them. Yeah, still good. The old guys.
Do not get rid of them.
That's dope, man. That's
right.
Yeah, dude.
Right?
Yeah.
Still play video games. So do not ever believe that someone else has to bring you joy, create joy, or give you joy. You've had it forever. You were born with the right to be joyous. When I dance, I don't care if anybody else is dancing. I don't care where I am. The minute a song comes on and I start dancing, I am in joy. So I've actually changed how I spell that. It's INJOY, because I'm not passive about anything, right? So I'm not watching, enjoying someone dancing, watching it. I'm dancing. I'm in it. So the reason go ahead.
I know. I was speaking to your point on cultivating our happiness, right? We kind of have to be able to figure out how to cultivate it. I say it to clients all the time, hey, you could come and tell me, hey, I don't like Earth. It's full of nasty people. It smells different. It's getting full of trash. Get me to Mars. Get me to Mars. And I'd make a phone call for you. I'd get you set up with the shuttle, all the supplies you need. I'd get you all the way to Mars. You would start slowly terraforming Mars. In 90 days later, you'd call me and be like, I hate the color red and I hate dirt. Get me out of here.
Get me out of here. That's
right. So it's about trying to be able to understand this power of cultivation and manifestation and staying open to it. So I wanted to speak to that on being able to cultivate our healing.
It's all up to you. It's all up to you. Now, someone can stand next to you. They can hand you the hoe. They can help you cultivate by doing some of the work. But ultimately, you're the person, you're the farmer, you're the seeds. You're the one that plants. We joked the other day and said, don't plant pumpkin seeds if you want tomatoes. You're not going to cultivate what you want.
My dad always used to say something to me too. And he used to say to me as an athlete too, he coached me and many of my friends through football. He played semi-pro. So football also has a nice little spot in my heart too. Hence the chosen demographic that I work with. Right. So he used to tell me this little thing that we'd go back and forth. And I have to tell myself this a little bit, is that he would say, Mark, where's the gold?
Where's the
and
gold?
I would say, where's the gold? And I would say, it's in the ground. And he would say, get your shovel.
Yeah. Get your shovel. Start digging.
Get your shovel. Like, I'm not going to get that out of the ground for you.
That's right. That's exactly.
I know where it is. It's right there. You get the shovel.
When Logan was so sick with leukemia, before he was sick with leukemia, he was like 2 and he got it when he was like 4 3/4. And I gave him a mantra when he first started to be able to talk and have conversation. I go, my job is to keep you safe. Say that back to me. What's Jima's job? To keep me safe. That's right. And then he gets leukemia. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I screwed up. I can't always keep him safe. Now he's not supposed to eat sugar and all kinds of stuff is happening. And I said, hey, Logan, I made a mistake. My job is to help teach you how to keep yourself safe. Think of that. So much better. That's what every other animal does in the animal kingdom. So your job is to create the joy that you deserve. Someone else doesn't get to make you happy. I don't know if you've noticed that. They make you happy for about 6 months and then they don't. Did you ever notice that when you're in a relationship?
I noticed it a lot.
Wow. They used to make me so happy those first 6 months. And now they don't. That's just to get you together. So that's kind of like just a drug and a way of being that's to help us get together. And then the hard work. Then you're supposed to sit across from each other going, do I really want to do this? And then the hard work sets in, and then you start to create the partnership, create the joy. Never stop being an individual. Don't look for that person to create the life and the joy that you deserve. It's already in you. And they won't always be able to make you happy. That's not going to happen. So going back to your question about emotions, like you were given a life. We get to do this. And I want to say one thing to all the people who didn't get off the couch today. There's a whole bunch of people that are beating themselves up because they didn't do what they said they were going to do. And someone's yelling at them because they didn't do what they said they were going to do. And they're either in their depression or somebody hasn't sat down all day because of their anxiety. And they promised they would have. So I have the honor of boxing 3 times a week with George Foreman's son. His name is George Foreman, as they all are. And he's a wonderful guy. He's just a terrific man. And I've learned so much. It's called craft boxing. And here's what I've noticed in boxing. So I've noticed that when I throw a jab, it doesn't come back to me. When I throw an uppercut, it doesn't hit my own chin. So I am not taught to beat myself up. I'm not. Now, maybe my childhood trauma, I was beat up physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. That's true. So I'm going to have to learn not to beat myself up. That's going to have to be a daily practice. That means that the smaller the step, the greater the progress. Let's say that again. The smaller the step, the greater the progress. Or as the Marines like to say, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Mm-hmm. And as someone who used to think fast is great and faster is 10 times better, right, with all kinds of collateral damage, I live by that now. Slow is smooth.
Well, sounds like a whole emotional state disruption that we have to kind of go through to be able to not beat ourselves up, especially if we're raised in a childhood where it's full of shame, it's full of guilt as a form of love and expression. Learning to not hit ourselves is one of the greatest steps I think that we can do. But understanding that emotional step is what we've already talked about, is how it all kind of comes forward into that moment as you respond or react to it.
That's right. That you can pause, that you just stop, take some deep breaths, like act as if you don't breathe, you're going to kill over, or that something bad's going to happen if you don't breathe. And that's really true. So oxygen is everything. I mean, for a country that loves so much about pills and drugs and medications, it's amazing that the greatest chemical that's on this planet, I know it's a gas or whatever, it's still the best thing we got going.
That's one of the things that my wife picked up on when COVID came, moved to being a digital therapist, is now I work from home and you get to hear me go,
Right.
you get to hear that. You get to hear that about 100 times a day. It depends on the day, but hey, and at first she's like, "Are you okay? You sound distraught." And I'm like, "No, actually, I'm stopping myself from being distraught.
Right.
Like I'm actually implementing something that's good." So getting to that breath is huge.
It's huge. And I use the 478. You can use any one of them. Andrew Weil actually came up with that one. So you can check that out. I got to say something to Zach and Brandon because it's so important to me. And because we have a lot of work to do in the mental health field, and you're going to be a lot of the disruptors that we need. And it's courageous and important. And you come from a place that will really help. So the American Psychological Association, which Mark and I can be members of, as can psychologists and anybody else that's a clinician, it's sort of the association that oversees all of the sort of clinicians, much like the AMA. So they make a lot of decisions, they advocate, they have a lot of power about how mental health is presented and worked on. A year ago, just about a year ago now, the American Psychological Association apologized for supporting systemic racism. I want you to hear it.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right, Zach. They came out in social media and said, we now need to apologize. This was, of course, after race norming through the NFL, which you guys know,
Right.
people can look that up too. So it was after that. So I'm saying this, and I won't stop saying it, because as I said before, that if you were gay, you had a mental health disorder up until 1973. Women were called hysterical. And the word hysterical comes from, I think it's Roman or Greek, Latin, I'm not sure which one, and it means uterus. So the only people that can be hysterical are women. I think about that. Like that was right from that.
And histrionic, right? Histrionic is also is attached to over emotional reactions, like like
that's
histrionic.
Right. So I'm telling you this because as you are in this arena now, that needs to be brought up every single time people talk about mental health.
Yes,
I didn't know that. That's my first time hearing that.
Yeah.
No, I think this is, I mean, and Suzi, I want to thank you for bringing this up because this is a very big topic that I talk about, especially being a white man, helping a lot of Black men find their way or guidance and healing from what a lot of white people have done to them. Right. I also, back to our original conversation in the DSM-5, right? And understanding about relationships and all of that. Very high majority of these mental health modalities and interventions and diagnosis researched by white men. Right?
On white men.
On white men. Right. So very, very, very disconnected with the cultural norms and cultural, experiences that many people have. So even as a clinician, and I'm glad you're saying that mental health evolution, because that is true, is because we're really just at the forefront of really on the timeline of humans of really figuring out the best way and approach to move forward.
Yeah, and it's
with
really,
all of this.
right.
So
and it's historical trauma. So that's through generations, right? So we have to talk about our Native brothers and sisters and what they went through. Women like all of us and other countries. I'm thinking now of Ukraine and I think of all the other countries in Iran. And we think of all that and we've got to understand there's lots of things that are coming at us all the time to give us the ideas, the thoughts and the feelings that we're not worthy, that we don't deserve.
Well, and I think speaking to that, if we go and understand what trauma does to the human body, we can go and really do a lot of research into the Holocaust and understanding that the trauma that the Jewish population endured actually literally changed their genetic code. It
Yeah.
changed their genetic code
Yeah.
on actually how their body actually grows and evolves into the world. And so understanding that that event alone changes genetic code, we got to look at systemic oppression and what that is doing to us, especially as healers, and trying to help people cultivate and learn that, is looking at the systemic oppression that is still continuing on to this day.
Yeah. Brandon, I think Brandon knows this, but I don't remember if I said so. I had a stepfather starting when I was 10 years old, and he was Penobscot Indian from Old Town, Maine. He was African American and Italian. He was all that and more. And so I had the honor, my sister married into an African American family, so I had the honor of living in a mixed race family way before there was what we would say, there was even a law on the books in Massachusetts when I was 10 and up to 15 years old that said that black and white couldn't marry. Like, it was on the books. And my mom and dad, I loved my mom and dad. Now, no one enforced it, but it was there. It was there. So we still have a tremendous
disruptors.
Yeah. So we just made sure.
Come from a long line of disruptors.
Oh my
Suzi.
gosh, do I ever.
Well, we talked about mental, we talked about emotional, and I know Mr. Zach has been just waiting and waiting and waiting for us to get to the physical realm. And Suzi, doing my research more on you, not only did I know more, but the one thing that I didn't know about you is your history of lifting weights and your connection to the gym. So that is a big component that we use here at Sage Elite. So I would love to really focus on this. And, this is also a component that, as Sage Elite, we really want to develop. We really want to develop in understanding a program for female athletes and understanding what female athletes go through and striving for that physical totality. Right. And so, we really want to focus on that physical realm here. So I know Brandon and Zach have some questions for you on that one.
All right. Shoot away.
I was going to say, I didn't know you were a bodybuilder, Suzi, back in the day.
Right. I'm not. I'm building. I'm not a bodybuilder. I build.
No, back in the
day. Let me correct you. I almost bought a picture of you on eBay from 1993 of you on the leg press, and you're also curling and you're growling. And I sent it to these two last night. I'm like, boy, you guys got your work cut out for you.
Suzi, I want that shit autographed and signed.
I'm only buying that eBay photo if you actually sign it for me. I will buy that photo.
So it saved my life. So working out, so think of the metaphor, you guys know this because you're doing it, is that when you talked about sports and when you talk about going back and getting strong again, it's the metaphor. When you get physically strong, it does affect you emotionally and mentally. They're all connected, like we said before. So let's go back to what women deserve. Think of the messages women have been getting, again, for such a long time. I could be a cheerleader. In fact, I was. Yep. I was head cheerleader, but I won't say any more about that. Anyway, so I gave any. Okay, so moving right along. This idea that we don't deserve to be an athlete. That's really the message that and that putting money into, this is still happening in high schools around the country and schools around, they're putting money into female sports, put less because you're not going to get a good return. That's still happening. So you've got a big battle here, and the best allies that we can have as women to encourage us, that's got the word courage in it, to encourage us are you guys. You guys are the ones that are going to be able to say to these women, I've never done this. I haven't done it in a long time. I'm scared. It hurts. I don't like being, whatever they're going to say to you. And you go, we get it. And always and, never buts. Like, unless you're talking about your ass, it's only ands.
Right. No yabbits. No yabbits.
No yabbits. It's this idea that you guys can say, take it small, take it slow, because we're going to invest in you. This is an investment. So here's how I would ask you guys to think about. No one invested in our physical well-being. All I had to do was look good. I didn't have to be healthy. I didn't have to be strong. I just had to look right. Right?
Pass home ec, right? And
that's right. Pass home ec. So even now, women are still looking at how I look, not how strong and not how I feel. It's better. It's definitely better than when I was growing up. And what has to happen now is this idea that you get to invest in you. I'm 72 years old and I can do this because I invested in me 50 years ago. So I don't want to hear anymore about I've just put some money in my 401k, but I didn't go to the gym.
Right.
Right. And so
I love Starbucks, but I'm not working out, right?
That's it. So one of the things you guys can do is remember what it was like when you were just starting out. If you can remember when you were struggling, bring that. Because where you are now is going to intimidate anybody. They're going to go, oh my God, I'll never get like you. And say, thank God, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be like you. I want you to be like you. And you deserve to be stronger. You deserve to do that. So that's what I would ask is, and I would tell them the history of the only reason why you're not strong and feeling comfortable in your own body and working out is because you weren't encouraged to do that. You were encouraged to go look right. Like you were encouraged to go and look, while I was playing sports, you were supposed to be either cheering me on or getting ready for the, to look good after the game. And if we
I'm a father. I'm a father of 2 daughters that are athletes. I'm an active coach in their sports, and and I can absolutely see, and feel the difference. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't have that perspective until I had daughters. To be honest with you, it didn't slap me across the face, because it seems just so routine and so normal. But I'm going to share one story with you and to kind of show you like my perspective on. I was coaching my daughter's softball team. Right. And they have teams that you can choose from. They have all the Major League Baseball teams, and then they have NCAA teams. And the females only get to choose out of the college teams, no Major League teams. And I just found it was weird. So one, the colleges that they wanted me to pick out of, not a fan of them anyway. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I like the color black. I like the color red, and I like the color gray. I'm color coordinated, baby. That was where my mind went. So I'm at this, the first week of practice. It's all the dads that are kind of the coaches. We're kind of standing around and they all start kind of talking like, hey, did you see this? This team's called the Arizona Diamondbacks. Like who did that? And I looked up, I'm like, I did. And they're like, why? I'm like, why do you want to send the message to my daughter that she can't play in the majors, but you can send the message to your son? And I said, that's limiting to my daughter as an athlete, and that's not going to happen on my watch. We can play anywhere we want, on however we want.
That's right.
And they were like, they didn't really know what to say to me. You know what I mean? Because like I made this is the boundary right here. Like even my father boundary is now my coach boundary. You know what I mean? So I think it's so huge that females have representation and the appropriate amount of support.
That's right.
Because as you can see through, the U.S. gymnastics component, then you're also just seeing some of these articles that are coming out with Major League Soccer within the female realm and the abuse that they've had to endure. So you're right. It does take like-minded men to step up and to provide some little bit of protection so there's freedom to grow and evolve.
Yeah, you're our allies. So you are the ones that have a tremendous amount of influence to say it hurts us as well as men when women aren't seen and encouraged to be the athlete that they deserve to be, or even as physically strong as they want to be. Right?
Well, we talk a lot in this country about freedom of speech, right? Well, there also should be an understanding there's a freedom of sport and a freedom of play. Right. Like we all deserve to get in and play. We all, do you know what I mean? Like we should all have those experiences.
So I have a question.
Get off my soapbox.
Okay. But Dad, you're a great dad. So Zach and Brandon, you are the coaches here, and there's another quote, right? Physical training, or we're calling it whatever you're calling it. I hope that we'll find it's an integrative whole health training, and you specialize in the physical, knowing how it affects the spiritual and the mental as well, and emotional. what do you think you need in order to support these women, encourage these women? What is it that you've experienced in your life with the women in your life on all levels, sisters, mothers, aunts, lovers? What is it that you think you could bring and that you could help us, me specifically too, about how we deserve to get that strong body that we want and to feel better about our own physical well-being?
I think just the knowledge and the guidance is the biggest part. Just knowledge of your body, knowledge of your goals, how you want to feel, how you want to look. I know for myself, sometimes I get caught up with comparing myself, comparing my body, or just paying attention to things that don't matter besides what's here and what I want to do. So I think just paying attention to what you want, what the person wants, figuring out their goals, and just giving that guidance, just coming from a different perspective.
You did
Just giving them guys and trying to find different things that work for them. Like sometimes I don't like working out. I'm more of a yogi, so I do my yoga. Just trying to find that balance of strength and peace, and find different modalities that work for you. Like you like to do horseback riding. I know Mark likes to do different things. I like to do different things. So just finding that modality that works for you, that still gives you that same feeling and that same look that you want.
You did something though unique. You just said it, yogi. So you went to yoga, which we all know there are a lot of male yogis and more women. Much like we would say there's all men in the NFL right now. Who knows, someday not, right? So what happened for you when you were in a class where the women might be doing a little bit better, where they knew how to do this before you did? Do you remember that? Did that happen?
I do. I had to change my mindset, first of all, going into a yoga studio, coming from football, that like change that competition, get out of that competition, just want to compete from a different level, want to do better so I can feel better in the poses, want to go deeper in my practice so I can get the benefits of the poses. So just being in there, I had to learn just focus on branding. That's all that matters. Just all is focused on my branding and my breath. That's all that matters when I'm in yoga for 60 minutes, what I do and how I feel. So yoga gives that to me. I don't have to worry about all the other things that you worry about.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest reasons why I didn't get into yoga at start. I that vulnerability is like, man, I'm going to go in there. There's yogis. They know how to stretch. They know how to do all of this. They know the flow. And once I went in, I realized that, dude, nobody's paying attention to me. They could care less what I'm doing. Yeah. They're on their own path. And that's when my whole world opened up into yoga, when it was like, oh, okay, this is my practice, not our practice.
That's right.
And I just found so much, like you said, I just found so much vulnerability and just being there. Yeah. Mark, me in yoga, I went all my clothes off. So I'm really stare at myself and look at myself. Before, I didn't like looking at myself in the mirror. I don't like, staring at myself.
That's why I'm in the back of the class and you're in the front of the class, and I watch you to lead me.
But still, I had to start. I started at that point because I know what I didn't. I know what I was holding in. I know, I was just not. I was afraid to face myself. So that's why I really like to sit in the front of the class. And I was always taught as an athlete, you sit in the front, you get the best instruction.
Get to the front.
In order to be the best, you be at the front of the class.
So you'll remember that when women come to Sage Elite. Now, some of them will come as athletes because you specialize in athletes. It's not exclusive. And you've got this wonderful gift of knowing to help the physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual of the athletes. So what I'm saying is both of you will remember that. You will remember those experiences. You had a female yogi teacher. So there are many, probably several you've had that were females that were teaching you. So that idea of being vulnerable to somebody else teaching you, that's all you got to remember. People say, do you forget your trauma, Suzi? Do you forget? No, never. I never want to forget my trauma. I never want to forget all the ways that I can now empathize and understand and remember with other people. It doesn't, affect me the way that it does anymore. I go,
I don't want to forget it. I want it to be there. Yeah. I always try to tell people the past is no longer a liability. It's more of a guidance system. So I need to readily recall some of the stuff that I've learned from that situation so I can handle this situation and triage it appropriately.
Hey guys, this has been wonderful. I have to get close to getting off just because I have a huddle tonight with emerging vets and players. So here's the deal. When Brandon asked me if I would be on your podcast. I said, yes, only if you'll be on mine. So, so
I mean,
deep crazy
I would love that.
right? Yeah. And so because there's even more. Well, there's always going to be more because you'll want to know people. So as you keep opening and creating that and knowing that things, we have a better understanding now, just like what you said, Mark, before, even about trauma and the brain and life, that we deserve to keep wanting to know. That's what we get to do as human beings on this planet. And you
Stay
guys
curious, right?
stay curious.
Stay curious.
Yeah, that's it. And so you guys are the like I said, the new A team of this mental health evolution. So you are now officially mental health evolutionaries.
Well, hey, I will take that knighthood from you any day, Susie. I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's such an honor to speak with you and for you to give us time out of your day. Again, so thankful and grateful for you.
Oh, I'm just so blessed. And Brandon knows, like, we've got that whole wonderful history. And on the other podcast, we'll tell the story of when you were in that huddle and one of the opponent, remember? So one of the football players from the opposing team was on a huddle and Brandon didn't know it until he spoke, and he gave Brandon a perspective of what happened in that game that he never had. It was life-changing for all of us. It was.
I forever appreciate him for that. I don't want to say his name.
No, we'll tell the story on the next one, and you'll get to hear what happened.
Awesome.
Stay tuned. All right, you guys.
Susie, let's run it back. So,
okay,
whenever you're ready, we're game.
All right, great. Bless you.
Thank you so much, Susie.
Zach, nice to meet you, and welcome to the team and to the new evolution. So, great. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Susie. Bye. Wow, what a great episode with Suzi Landolphi. Again, I want to give a shout out to Susie and all the work that she's done. I mean, she's been doing great work for decades, impacting so many people. I mean, to meet a person that has dedicated their entire life to the service of others, unselfishly, belligerently unselfish, right? It just it's refreshing. And as a clinician, it kind of replenishes my cup to kind of see another clinician out there doing the stuff that we're doing. Yeah. So, Zach, Brandon, what are some of the biggest takeaways of your time with Susie?
I'll start off. I know Susie personally, so it's just always good to hear her knowledge, and you can hear her wisdom and just her coming from that authentic, genuine place. She's so just real about what she's been through and how she got to where she's at now. So she kind of just give you those lessons, so a different perspective to think about. I know when I first met her, I was just so in my own shit. I wasn't really trying to hear what anyone else was talking about.
Right.
But she was very adamant about, helping me and, helping me getting to a better place. So I forever admire for her that. And I know how much work she's done with the guys at MVP. And I know how much this podcast is just other people hearing her are going to just love all the little tidbits that she gives.
Yeah. I want to say from my perspective, I definitely enjoy her energy. That was really, it really like lit a fire under me. And I like high energy people. And, I didn't know she was, 72 years old. That's great. She's able to live that long. That means she has a ton of knowledge, a ton of experience, something that I always enjoy. I love, knowledgeable people with experience. The way she explained how she controls her thoughts and how she can, the steps she took to do so, I think that was very important, especially in my case. Sometimes I don't really know how to control my thoughts or how to mitigate them from coming in and how to absorb them and process them. Dealing with our emotions as well and how our past traumas, using that fuel to, as a roadmap to where we're trying to go. So, I appreciate
a superpower.
Yeah, like I said, I appreciate
something that's holding you back. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the biggest things that I took away that I'm so appreciative of my time with her is that in the mental health field, when you work with clinicians that are older than you or that have been doing it longer than you, they kind of get very set in their ways and they kind of get very, to go with the horse theme, they put kind of blinders on, at least my experience. And they kind of have a very big division towards the next generation of healers that are coming up behind them.
Yeah.
And, you know, Zach, she lit a fire under my ass too. And, you know, it kind of like held a mirror up in front of all three of us. And the responsibility that we have is like, you know, the platform that we have, the microphones that we have in front of our mouths, and the experience and intelligence that we have. It's on us to kind of make that move. And she really lit a fire under my ass, dude. Like, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, because it was like, oh, there's an older clinician that actually respects my input and actually respects the stuff that I have. I haven't been in the game as long as she has, but she understands what I'm bringing to the table, and she wants to collaborate. You know, there's synergy there. And man, that's such a huge thing, for a clinician. I mean, for me professionally. So, definitely enjoyed my time with her. Everyone, that's watching and listening, please, any questions or concerns, hit us up in the Instagram page. We'd love your feedback. Also, give us a follow at Ahead of the Game podcast on Instagram. And then also please subscribe to the Sage Elite YouTube channel. The official podcast of Sage Elite Healing. So, my guys, I'll see you in 2 days for the next episode.
Sir.
Appreciate you.
Later, guys.